Good morning. I want to thank all of you for joining and being a part of this. It has not been easy. It has been probably one of the most difficult things I've had to do in my milestone of my life. So I titled this Me, Myself, and Her. And I'm not showing you me because you might have things that you're doing. I know I'm sitting here with tissues because this is hard. And I don't want you all to see me cry. I don't want you to see me cry. So listening is good enough. That way you can go ahead and whatever you're doing in your day, you can go ahead and do that and you can hear me. And you don't have to stop and be glued to your screen. So this started with me. And I'm going to take the me back to when I was about, 13. I was living with my father and stepmom, who was, because they both passed on. She was from St. Martin. When I entered their lives, it was my father, my stepmother, and she had a son who was, he was probably about 2 or 3 years older than me. And he was, at that time, they called it high-functioning, mentally retarded. So we moved to the city. We had been living we lived in Queens. And then we moved to the city, back to Manhattan, where she used to live. As a matter of fact, we lived in the projects right behind Lincoln Center. And I went from having a bedroom to sleeping on the living room couch because we were waiting for a 3-bedroom apartment, but the only thing they had available was a 2-bedroom. And between the two of us, Danny was the one that needed the bedroom. So I slept on the living room pull-out couch. And then when I got too lazy to pull the couch out, I just simply put blankets and all that on the couch and slept on the couch. I wasn't a happy camper about it, but I did. So my stepmother, she came from I would guess somewhat of an upper class West Indian family where she had been exposed to the quote-unquote finer things in life. So by the time I was 12, now I'll take it back to 12. By the time I was 12, I knew how to set a formal table, from the plates, all the glasses, and the silverware that goes with it. I knew how to do all of that because she taught those things to me. When I was 13, she had found a private school that I could go to. It was boarding, like a boarding school. So I had to be interviewed, and I'll never forget when we drove up to the gate of this place. It didn't have a gate. It was a big stone entrance. And there was this huge house. It was an old house, but it was huge. And those were all the offices. And behind the offices was a sloping green. And it was big. And there was a road that drove around in almost like a circle behind this building. And then there were these cottages that were made out of this huge stone. And they were really big. They were like these huge places, very huge places. So I grew up with that, with all of that. And it was just fantastic what I grew up with. So I had seen this place, and I got interviewed, and the lady asked me, how would I feel being with people who might be prejudiced against me because of the color of my skin. And I told her I didn't care. I could handle it because I was from New York and I was also from the South. So it was no big deal to me because the place was gorgeous. I was like, wow, a 70-acre estate with a cobble. It was these. I don't know. There's a particular name for this stone, but they're really big and square. So I know you've seen them. So the way the houses look, they were made out of this stuff. And she took me on a tour, and I was just like, I can't wait to get here. So my parents drove me up there and dropped me off, and I just felt like I had landed in heaven. So I met other people, and this place was incredible. The dining room was bigger than the two apartments that were right. I just said dining room. No, that dining room was probably about 4 apartments in the projects. That was the dining room. It was about, I think the ceiling, it was about 15 feet high, and it had a mirror in there that must have been at least 12 feet high and about 12 feet wide. And I sat at the head of the table, right, and it had two ends. I sat at one end. There was a girl that sat at the other end who hated black people. And then on the sides of us, there was 2 and 2. So she and I would stare at each other every time we sat down. And I was very good at staring at people and not saying anything. So she was my practice. I want you all to hold on to that because later on it's going to come up again. So here I was at the 70-acre estate meeting all kinds of people. And I met these black folks that lived in the neighborhood. They were like very wealthy. I was just like blown away. One friend of mine, her dad was a cardiologist, and they had a gas station, their own gas pump, their own private gas pump on the property. The house was just magnificent. They had the classic staircase that's real wide steps at the bottom, and it gets narrow and branched off to the right and to the left upstairs. It was just wow. And they had a white baby grand piano in the living room and white carpet. And they had, I think they had like 2 family rooms, and it was just laid out. Her mother was the administrator of a nursing home, and her father was a cardiologist. And they had a maid who she was maid/cook, and I think she lived with them. And they used to love, especially her father, used to love to invite me over for conversation. Because he said he'd never met anyone so young who was so mature. And we used to talk about politics, and, he was curious about the protest movements and stuff like that, but he wouldn't let his daughter participate in any of it. Matter of fact, he made her press her hair when I had this huge Angela Davis afro. But he loved having me come over, and I enjoyed going. And then next door to them, their house was really, looked like a castle. It had that big stone, but in the foyer, there was a stained glass in the roof. And it was above the 2nd floor. And all of the rooms, there was a hallway upstairs, and it was circular. All the rooms were off of the hallway that went completely around, and all the bedrooms were off of this. It was just, I'd never seen anything like it. And these were black people. And they had a back house that looked like a mansion too. And the mother, I don't remember what her father did, but one of her sisters married a famous writer. But the mother, we were all sitting in the kitchen one day, and she said, I get paid every 30 days. And I'm thinking to myself, she must be a teacher. Who else gets paid every 30 days, right? So she said, well, I'm sure teachers probably don't get paid like that anymore. I hope they don't. So she said, I own 35 brownstones in Harlem. My mouth fell open because I knew about brownstones. And they usually have, let's say, 6 to 10 units each. And this woman said very calmly that she gets paid every 30 days and has 35 brownstones in Harlem. My brain went cha-ching. When I get old enough to buy some property, that's what I'm going to do. She is a very good role model. So, and then across the street from them, there was this other girl. We weren't that friendly. We were okay. Her parents' home looked like, they said it was a replica of Shakespeare's house in England. So you can imagine a girl that was sleeping on the couch one day is now on a 70-acre estate in a bedroom, a dorm bedroom that I shared with 2 other people that was larger than the apartment that I lived in. I had we had pink bedspreads that were trimmed with these little white balls all around the bedspread with matching curtains. I could look out over the land, and it was just gorgeous. Pheasant birds running around. They had an apple orchard with about 3 different varieties of apples, peaches, plums. Oh man, my drawer was just full of this stuff because I'd never experienced anything like this. Where you could just go and pick it. That's it. They had a working farm. They had ducks and chickens and a fishing hole where they would stock it with fish so the kids could fish. In the wintertime when it snowed, and it would snow, there was the same road that I described to you. It was circular, but they also had another cottage that was way down a hill. And if you took this circular road that I'm talking about, there was this same kind of stone. There was a brick wall. I have no idea why it was there, but it was a brick wall. So if you went to the right, if you were driving, it would take you around that circle. But if you went to the left, it would take you down to the other buildings, including a recreation building. You could sleigh ride, and if you made the right on your sled, it took you around to the circle and it would stop. But if you made the left, it went down this sloping hill. So you had to be careful about that brick wall, because if you hit it, you were going to get hurt. And kids are kids. We're going to try it. So I got real good at sledding. So I knew I wanted to take the left because I wanted the longer ride. But the longer ride meant a longer walk back up. But who cares? You're a kid. So now there were about 1, 2, 3. There was 3 cottages that were around the circle. But the 4th cottage was down the hill. So there was the rec center. Wasn't too far away from the cottage I lived in. The cottage was fabulous, by the way. It had French doors to the living room and parquet floors throughout. It was wow. Talking about moving on up to the east side. I moved on up to the east side for real. So, matter of fact, when I was 14 and when I was 13, I was into astronomy. I loved it. And my favorite uncle, who was like my second father, they say that I loved him from the time I was in the crib. That when he would come over to me, I would just kick and giggle and blow bubbles and all of this stuff. All of these signals that a child gives when they like someone as an infant. So he had bought me a telescope, and I could chart stars. I mean, I had the books and all of that. And which is controversy about did they really go to the moon or didn't they? I watched it. Whatever it was me and the cottage mom. We watched it together. And I'll never forget it. I think I even have the magazine, Life magazine, with the walk on the moon. So, that was my beginnings of a whole new chapter of my world. I went from being a tomboy to actually being ladylike. The transformation was amazing. So, at the gym, we had an indoor pool that was heated. Who has that? I was like, what? Could never swim, still can't. But talk about wanting to be a mermaid. I wanted to be one. They would teach me lifeguard classes, and I joined it thinking it would teach me how to swim. So I was all good. And then when they asked me to jump in, I jumped in. But talk about coming back up, I was having problems. So that ended the swimming classes for me. But they had a trampoline, they played basketball. I could, as an artist, I had my world. I could paint and do all these great things. And they took, I had gone to, when I lived in the projects, we'd go to summer camp. But this was like summer camp supreme. I mean, I'd never gone to summer camp where I was in a tent that was really out in the woods. When I went summer camping, we were in cabins with screen doors and all that kind of thing. No, this wasn't that. This was actually camping with tents. But I could walk around in the tent. They had a fire going outside. They were cooking food. I mean, it was like, come on. This was like Survivor Plus, because you didn't have to worry about being out in the wild, not getting hurt or anything. It was really nice. I went to operas. I did a lot of things. Plays, you name it. And birthdays, oh my God. I would get about $300 for my birthday. And then we had chores. So for our chores, we got paid. I would get paid $30 a month. So it was like, okay, well, this is working out. They used to get my hair done, and then I really had some hair. I want my hair back, so I'm doing the coffee challenge, and it's working. But I don't want to get too old.